Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. In today's video we have another new palette release to review. I am dying to try the new Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 eyeshadow palette. This palette is a little bit different from the ones he's released before, while at the same time kind of looking similar. We are going to do two looks, we're going to swatch everything, we are going to do some comparisons, and I cannot wait to get into it. If you guys are excited for today's video, don't forget to please give it a thumbs up and let's go ahead and get started. This new Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 eyeshadow palette is now available at Sephora. It retails for $70, which is the same price as his other palettes are now. I'm pretty sure when the first palette first came out, the palettes were like probably 60 something. I don't recall exactly 60 what, but they are all now 70. This palette, like I said, is all matte, mostly powders with two creams. Let me go ahead and show you the outside packaging. Here's what the packaging looks like. It has the same rose gold color than his palettes usually have, except this time, because it is an all matte palette, there is like a matte film over the shiny finish that the other two have. Here is the original, so that you can kind of compare, and here is Major Dimensions 2, which has shiny on the inside and a matte rim around it. So anyways, let's see what this palette looks like. I have not opened it yet. Take a look right there at the color story. At first glance, it looks pretty basic, but Patrick Ta does usually stick to the very natural looking makeup looks. So what would surprise me is that he were to come out with like a colorful eyeshadow palette. This right here comes to no surprise. Now I know a few of you are going to be very excited about an all matte palette. I always see your comments in my videos that you want all matte palettes, and so Patrick Ta gave you exactly that. As you can see, the top row has warmer shades and the bottom row has more cool tone shades, and it has a white. Is it a white? It's almost a white. It's like a bone color type shade all the way to a black matte, and then also a shiny black. As per usual, the cream shades come with this little acrylic separator so that the powders of the shades won't get on those. And I did see him talking about the palette over on Instagram, and he said that the formulas of the creams are a little bit different in this palette versus in the previous two palettes. The cream formulas in the previous two palettes are super creamy, very blendable. You definitely have a lot of time to play with them. You can layer them beautifully. Now I heard him say that the cream shades from the third palette dry a little bit faster. The reasoning behind that is that he wanted shades that you can use not just as part of your eyeshadow look, the way I usually use the previous ones, but also as eyeliner. So we are definitely going to be testing that out today. I can't wait to see what you guys have to say in the comments about this color story. I definitely wanted to try it out. I feel like it is, for the most part, a pretty basic palette, but I always get excited about Patrick Ta eyeshadow palette releases. So let's go ahead and go for it. The palette, by the way, just like the previous releases, is made in the USA and it has a 12-month shelf life. One thing I wanted to mention, because Angelica Nyqvist said this in a video a long time ago and it kind of stuck with me, is that shimmer shades, glimmery, sparkly colors, are a lot more expensive to make than mattes. Mattes tend to be the shades that are cheaper to produce and to put in palettes, and so having an all matte palette versus his previous palettes, which are half matte half shimmer, maybe the price should be a little less, but I guess that not everyone knows or thinks about that. So I don't know, I just wanted to put that out there. Actually, no, I'm not done with this conversation. The Patrick Ta palette has really nice big shades. They have 1.8 grams each versus the new Natasha Denona palette, for example, which has more shades, and they are 0.58 ounces each. So the shades in the Natasha Denona palette are a lot smaller, but you do get more of them. The Natasha Denona palette has beautiful sparkly shades which are more expensive to produce, and it is a palette made in Italy, which is known to have the best quality, most creamy eyeshadow shades ever, versus this one here made in the US with bigger shades but less of them and no shimmers. And this one is $70 and this one is $68. So I just wanted to kind of put it in perspective. I would definitely pick this over this one. I know that an all matte palette definitely has its advantages. I know that the Patrick Ta line has its appeal. I get it. With all of that said, let's go ahead and go for the swatches. Starting with the 4 darkest warm colors. The first one is called Non-Negotiable, which is the cream shade. The second color is called Trademark. Then we have the color Crucial, and this next one here is called Needed. One more thing I need to mention is that even though this palette is made here in the USA, out of every other brand, out of every other palette I have in my collection that is also made in the USA, I do think that Patrick Ta has the best formula made here. His shades are super pigmented and super creamy, and they blend beautifully, and they're not too powdery. So definitely also keep that in mind. Here is the last 2 colors, which are the shades Classic and Mandatory. Let's go on to row number 2, starting with the cream black shade, which is super pigmented, and this one is called Impressive. Then we have Irreplaceable, which is the matte black, Fundamental, Essential. Majority of the shades are synonyms of each other. Non-Negotiable, Crucial, Needed, Mandatory, Irreplaceable, Fundamental, Essential, Staple. They all mean the same thing. Anyways, the last 2 shades are Staple, which, wow, that is a creamy shade. And my battery died, but anyways, this last color is called Refined. And so take a look right here now that everything is swatched at the color story of this palette and at how creamy and pigmented all of the swatches look. The only color I was surprised that wasn't more pigmented was the matte black powder. However, it totally makes sense that it's a soft matte black powder because you have the intensity right here with the cream shade. Now that we've seen the swatches, let's go ahead and go for the eyeshadow looks. And I have no idea what I want to do. However, I do know one thing, and that is that because the palette is divided between warm and cool tones, I'll do a warm tone look and a cool tone look, one on each eye. I'm going to start with this color right here, and this is a Sigma E28 brush that I'm going to use. That's the color called Staple, and this is going to be the crease color for my cool tone look. I think I'm going to go for an all matte look that has a smoky outer part, and then I'll do a smoky wing as well, so that we can try this as eyeliner and smoke it out with the mattes. I feel like that maybe might be a good idea. We'll see. A little bit more of the shade Staple, and we are going to blend it all throughout the crease. It blended out immediately. It is a nice pigmented, very blendable shade for sure. Let's go 1 shade darker here. This is the color Essential, and I'm going to start by adding it on the outer corner of the eye, just tapping it in place first. And then with the tip of the brush, I'm going to blend it into the crease color, just back and forth with this big blending brush. Switching to an E24 from Sigma, and I'm going to grab the darkest matte cool brown back here, the one called Fundamental, and I'm going to darken up things even further on the outer corner. And this is the darkest shade we'll use for like the smoky look, because the darkest colors, which are the matte and cream black, we'll use for a wing type situation. So just blending it into the rest of the look. I feel like I'm filming this video very fast because the shades blend out so easily that I spend no time blending. For the eyelid, we have to go with the light color, which is almost a white but not quite. The one called Refined, and with the reference number 28, I'm going to add it on the inner part of the eye here. I'm defining my eyelid area with it. And I left a little space in the middle. I'm actually going to go with the other light shade, the one that has a bit of warmth in it. And I'm going to pat it in the center of the eye look right here. And then I'm blending it into the cooler tone shades. A little bit more of this shade right here on a blending brush. This is the E24 from Sigma. And I'm patting it near the center of the eye so that it blends into the lighter shades. This would obviously be a beautiful companion palette where you have all of your staple neutral nude matte shades, and then you could combine these with like a sparkle in the center of the eye if you have individual sparkly shades that you use along with mattes. But since today's video is solely a review of the palette, I'm not going to be combining it with anything. Let's move on to the smoky wing, and I don't have tape or anything like that, but I'm going to use a little piece of cardboard that I might have taken from an eye cream box. If you have like a business card, that will work as well. And I just want to place it right back here so that I don't go below that line with the cream shade. I'm going to use a Refer number 3 brush, and then with the cream black shade, I'm going to smoke out this outer half of the eye back here. I shouldn't call that smoke out, I'm just going to do a wing with a cardboard. Moment of truth. Pretty good, pretty good. Let me fix this upper edge back here, and I want to take it in a little more, but I guess I could also do that with the matte shade. So here is what that cream color looks like on its own. And like I said, I want to like smoke it up a little bit. So let's see. Back with my little cardboard. This is a BK Beauty brush. I'll tell you the number in a second. And the matte black color. And I'm going to smoke out that wing line that I created with the cream. Alright, so there we have it. This was a BK Beauty 207 just because it was the first thing I saw, but I would have loved to use something even smaller. I think it would have turned out even better, especially right here in the center. Anyways, back with my BK03 and whatever's left on it, just darkening up this part. And so this right here is the top of our cool toned look. I really like the way that I used the cream as a wing. And for the other eye, I'll use the cream differently so that we can really test out the cream formulas. But I like the way this came out. I'm going to use a brown eyeliner in the waterline. And with my Refer number 3, I didn't clean it, so there's like a bit of black left on it. But I'm not going to use the black shade. I'm going to use the darkest cool tone brown. And I'm going to use it to define my lash line down here, all the way to the tear duct area with the very dark brown shade. Refer number 13 and our transition color. And I'm smoking out the lower lash line. So here we have it. Before any mascara or lashes, take a look at the first look with this palette. And like I said, I did this one with all of the cool toned colors in it. Moving on to the warmer eye, and I'm going to start with this shade as my transition shade. This shade is called Classic, and I think the name suits it because it's a very kind of traditional, you see it in every nude palette type of shade. So I'm blending it all throughout my crease. I went back to some more of that color to intensify things ever so slightly, and I'm continuing to blend. Moving on to the next shade right here. This is a Refer number 1. That color is called Needed, and I'm going to intensify the outer V of the eye with it, so outer third of my eyelid, and blending it onto the crease. Just back and forth, blending up here. Going into this next shade over here with a Refer number 3. This one is called Crucial, and I'm going to smoke it right in between my lower lashes down here. I'm trying to think of ways of showing you every single color in different parts of my eye without doing the same eye look. So I'm blending that one right in between my lower lashes. As you can see, it is a bit warmer than what we've used so far. So now I want to use the cream brown, and I want to use it differently to what I did over here with the black. So I want to smoke out the outer part of my eye with it. Or maybe I should do the entire eyelid and just have a very intense all matte brown smoky eye. We'll see. This is a Sigma E27 and I'm grabbing the cream brown, which I'm going to tap all over the outer third of my eyelid back here. I think I'm doing the whole eyelid, so I'm tapping it all throughout my entire eyelid space to have a very intense brown smoky situation. Still using my Sigma E27. And it's okay if it looks a little sloppy right now because we are about to fix that. This is the reference number 1 I was using. Nothing added. I'm just going to, first things first, make sure that the edges look smooth before I even add the next shade. And I'm trying to not let the cream fully dry before I do this because I need to be able to move it around. I'm pretty happy with that. That blended out nicely. So I'm going to use the one matte shade we have not used yet, which is the shade Trademark here. This is like a dark, warm brown shade, and I'm going to add it right over the cream, starting on the outer part of my crease, and then we're going to just slowly blend it forward. Just back and forth with my reference number 1, reference number 14 and the transition color to smoke out my lower lash line. With whatever's left on the tip of my E27, which was the shade I used for the cream color, I'm just doing the outer third of my under eye here. Same brown eyeliner I used for the first look, and the lightest warm matte shade here right on the inner corner with a reference number 28, and we are blending it in just a little bit. So here you have it. Take a look at our warm look with this palette. And after using all of the shades, I will say that the edge this palette has is definitely 100% the creams, because I was able to get this eye from pretty regular to like a super intense brown smoky eye in an instant by using the cream shade all over the eyelid. And not only that, but the cream shades have such an incredible formula that they are extremely easy to work with. You know what he should do? He should release cream quads, cream eyeshadow quads in different colors that we could combine with like our regular powder eyeshadow palettes. I feel like that would definitely be very exciting because the creams he creates and puts in his palettes are extremely easy to use and always the most enjoyable part of using his eyeshadow palettes. Anyways, here are my 2 different eyeshadow looks. Before any mascara or lashes are applied, let me finish up my face and I'll be back to compare this palette to the previous Color Stories from Patrick Ta and to give you my final thoughts on his new release. I'm back. I put some mascara on, some lashes, also a lip liner and a gloss. And these right here are my final looks with this new Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 eyeshadow palette. So take a look right here, look number 1. And look number 2. So let's do some comparisons, and the main comparison I want to do is I want to compare the top row of matte shades to the matte shades in the original Major Dimensions eyeshadow palette because I feel like they're going to be super similar. So here's the new one. Pay attention to the top row, and then here are the warm matte colors from the original eyeshadow palette. Actually, I think there's a better way I could put them together. Hold on. Here you go. The lower row of the first palette and the top row of the new palette, as you can see, have a lot of similarities. Both of them are mostly all matte. They all have warm shades in them and a matte cream color to accompany them right here. The warm matte shades in these palettes are definitely incredibly close to one another. For example, let's compare this shade to this one. Basically the same color right there. Let's do this shade with this shade. Take a look right there. Those two are also extremely similar to one another. When it comes to the darker matte browns, not as much, but still, like this one from the first palette maybe could be compared to the matte brown in the cool tone side. You can see the difference. This one's more neutral, this one's more cool tone, but they have similar levels of intensity. It's going to be the same thing with this one and that one. They both have a bit of warmth to them, but this one has much more red tone to it than the one in the new one. And I feel like we have to compare the creams as well. I'm comparing the darkest cream brown from the first palette with the brown cream shade from the third palette. Take a look right here. This is the one from the new palette. This is the one from the first palette. As you can see, the new one is a richer, darker brown shade. When it comes to Major Dimensions 2, the second palette he launched, you're not going to find as many differences because Major Dimensions 2 is a pretty rose palette and the new one doesn't really have rose shades at all. Plus this one is half shimmer, this one is all matte. The only two shades in these two that we could compare would be the dark brown cream shade, which is going to be warmer, but still we can compare it to the dark cream brown in the new one. And so here's that comparison for you. This is the one from Major Dimensions 2, which has a lot more red in it, and then the dark, more neutral one from the new palettes. So when it comes to previous Patrick Ta releases, as you can see, there are some similarities, in particular with the top row of the new palette. The bottom row is pretty much all new for the brand because he hadn't really done super cool tone shades like these in the past. So what are my final thoughts on this new release from Patrick Ta? I think the palette is absolutely lovely to play with for sure. The formulas are nice and blendable. They're definitely pigmented. They can be sometimes a bit on the powdery side, but it's not bad at all. I didn't really have trouble with it falling underneath my eyes, and I did both of my eye looks today with a full face of makeup on. So the powderiness was definitely not an issue, but the shades are on the soft side. These palettes though to me are very fun to play with because of the cream shades. I always enjoy playing with Patrick Ta cream shades. I feel like it brings something else to the table, something that other palettes don't have, and I quite enjoy using them. However, if we take the cream shades out of the equation and we look strictly at the palette from the perspective of the matte powders, it's nothing special. It's nothing we haven't seen before. Did I like the color story? Yes. In particular for the cool tone shades right here, I really enjoyed these shades. They're very trendy right now. And so if you've been looking for some really stunning matte cool tone shades that you can pair with other shimmers or use on their own for an all matte look, I feel like you are going to really enjoy the cool toned side of the palette. The warm tone colors are super lovely as well, but I definitely feel like they're a lot more common than the cool tone shades are. $70 in my opinion is a little bit more than what I would love to pay with this palette. I feel like there are other palettes out there with much more competitive pricing. It's a little pricey, especially for a palette that only has 12 shades, but with that said, it is a lovely palette to play with. So it'll depend on you and your collection and your makeup preferences whether or not you want to go for this one. I tried to give you as much information as I could possibly think of in this video so that you can make the right choice for yourself. If you like my review, my comparison, and my looks, and you decide to go for this palette, please shop for it using the links I'm leaving you down below in the description box. Whenever you shop for my links, it helps out my channel. Also, if you see it tagged somewhere on the screen, that is also an affiliated spot where you can help out my channel by making your purchase at no extra cost to you, of course. And if you like my video, don't forget to please give the video a thumbs up before you leave. If you're new to my channel, please don't leave without subscribing. I love you all so much. Thank you for watching today's video, and I hope to see you back in the next one. Bye.